Okay, well done Year 9 for getting in on time. Just going to give it 1 more minute. A few more people still trying to get in, and then I'll get started. Oliver, can you turn your camera off for me? Thank you. Okay, Year 9, I'm going to share the PowerPoint again in a minute. If you're having trouble looking at the PowerPoint, then you might need to log out. Okay, but we're going to get started. Okay, welcome to the Key Stage 4 Options Launch Assembly. You are going to get lots of different information, both in this assembly and throughout the day. Okay, so don't worry if there's anything you miss. There's going to be lots of a chance to ask lots of questions when you come back into school next week. Okay, so in this session, I'm going to talk to you how the option process works, what's compulsory, what's optional, the different types of subjects and qualifications that are on offer at Key Stage 4, and also just go through with you what you're going to receive this evening when the emails go out. So in terms of the option process, there was an original option information assembly that went on the website on the 1st of February. You will be receiving an option booklet and an option pathway letter and options form later on this afternoon. Within your pathway letter will be a link to the booklet, because that's all going to be online in the Key Stage 4 area, which I'll show you in a minute. You'll also be having some subject presentations in your lessons starting from tomorrow. There's Year 9 Parents' Evening this Thursday, and your parents will be getting a letter about that later on tonight. And there's something called the Virtual Options Evening, which I'll explain a little bit later in the PowerPoint, that will also help you to decide what options you're going to take. So all this information put together, I think you'll be in a position by the 23rd of March to be able to select your options. And also the good news is, because you're going to be back on site from next Monday, you can also see me and lots of different staff if you've got any queries. So although this presentation is about options, I also wanted to talk to you about the core subjects, because all of you have to do core subjects in Year 10 and 11. So as you can see on the screen, we've got the exam subjects. So all of you will take a GCSE in English language and English literature. All of you do maths, and all of you will do science. Whether you do combined or triple, I'll talk to you about that in a minute. You also, as part of the national curriculum, will do lessons in PE, skills for life and religious education. Now, in terms of science, you may be aware that this year things are slightly different in Year 9 in terms of the sorts of things you do in your science lesson. But you're sort of a bit of a transition year, and you're starting to do some of the skills and techniques that you'll need for when you go to start your GCSEs at the start of Year 10. Now, there's 2 different types of science course. There's combined science, which is worth 2 GCSEs, and there's triple science, is where you do biology, physics and chemistry as 3 separate GCSEs. And we make a decision at the end of Year 9 which course you're best suited to. Now, all of your core subjects and most of your option subjects are GCSEs. Now, that means that most of them have what's called a terminal, which is a final written exam at the end of Year 11. They're all graded 9 to 1, with 9 being the top grade. Some of our GCSEs will have coursework in them, and some of them will have practical exams, and we also do what's called a vocational GCSE in engineering. And all the information about the makeup of the different courses will both be in the virtual options evening and also in the options booklet. Now, this is a bit of a strange word, and you may have heard about this before. This is called the English Baccalaureate, often referred to, you'll see the shortened version there, is the EBAC. Now, this isn't a qualification, but it's something that the government brought in about 6 years ago that recognises achievement across a certain range of what they consider to be academic qualifications. So you see there, you've got the core of English, maths and science, and then options that you can take, geography or history, or you can take both, French or Spanish, and computer science. If you were to achieve the EBAC, you will need to study English, maths, 2 sciences, which you would all do. Strangely enough, computer science also counts as a science, and then a language in either geography or history. Now, as I said, it's a really strange thing. This is not a qualification. It is something the government brought in that we have to follow, where suitable, we have a pathway that fulfills the requirements of the English Baccalaureate. And there's more information on this in your second assembly that you'll go into later on. Now, as well as GCSEs, we also do non-GCSE courses. They're sometimes referred to as technical awards and sometimes referred to as a vocational course. Now, just because they're not a GCSE doesn't mean to say they're not worth exactly the same. They are still at level 1 and level 2, which is the same as GCSEs. They're just slightly more related to the world of work, linked in with sorts of things if you're thinking about going on to do an apprenticeship, and there's more coursework with them, and often there's practical assignments. So it's definitely something that you might want to look into in more detail, and you might want to do mostly GCSEs with a few vocational courses. So we're offering 5 non-GCSE courses this year. The Cambridge National Certificate in IT, and that's because actually there's no longer a GCSE in IT. The government stopped that about 3 years ago, so that's the qualification we do. There's a BTEC in music, and the nice thing with music is you've actually got a choice because you can do GCSE music or BTEC music. EDUCAS, that's the exam board, both with construction and with hospitality, 2 very popular vocational courses. And we do also do an ASDAN, just a level 1 qualification for those of you on a certain pathway, and you'll get details about that later on. Now, option times, when you actually come to select your options, which I'll show you what they are in a minute, is all about being selfish. Please make sure once you've looked at all the information, which is going to take you a while to do all of that, but once you come to select your options, you do base it on your interests. You do think about what your future plans might be. Don't worry if you don't know. Do things that you think you're going to enjoy. Please don't pick what your best friend is doing. Every single one of you is different. So it is really, really important that you think about yourself. Don't think about who else might or may not choose the subject or who your teacher is, because teachers will change, groups will change. And also don't think something might be easier. There are no easy qualification courses. They're just different. You may find art easier, where someone else may find it very difficult. You may find history hard, where someone else may find that very difficult. They're just different. Now, you may wonder why on earth I've put a slide up talking about after Key Stage 4. In other words, what do you do when you get to year 11 and either stay here or go somewhere else? It's just that some of you might want to start thinking about that because it may have an impact on the sorts of GCSEs you decide to take as your options. So it's something to bear in mind when you're choosing your options. Now, before I show you the slide that picks out the options that you can take, we cannot just give a free choice. The government makes certain rules and regulations that we have to follow, but we also work incredibly hard so that whatever you end up doing, the way the timetable and curriculum is structured, it will still give you a nice, broad and balanced offer so that you're in a good position for whatever you decide to do post 16. So you will go to an assembly after this one, and you will also get your pathway letter. And on that, it will show you whether you're in the red, white or blue pathway. We've been running this pathway system for about the last 3 years. Most schools do a similar thing to what we do. And we spend a lot of time looking at all of your data, discussing with various members of staff to make sure that you are on the correct pathway. And I think this graphic shows it a little bit better. Okay, when you get your letter and when you go into your next assembly, you'll know what pathway you're on. If you're on the red pathway, you have to choose a language and you have to choose a humanities. But just a reminder, you could do both languages and you could do both humanities. But you have to do a language and you have to do geography or history. Then you have 2 other choices. If you're on the white pathway, you have to choose one from what's called EBAC subjects. So one from French, Spanish, geography, history or computer science. And then you have 3 other options. Okay, but remember, you could choose French and Spanish if you want to, if you're a dual linguist. Okay, if you're on a blue pathway, then you will be doing the employability course, or you might be doing some English and maths support, or you might be doing both, and you will have 2 or 3 options depending on which one of those you're doing. When you get your pathway letter in your form, that will be clear, and also when you go into your next assembly, that will be explained as well. So the option choices that you have are in front of the screen now. All the GCSE courses aren't highlighted. The ones that are highlighted green are our vocational courses. The reason that music is highlighted yellow is because you can choose to do either the GCSE course or the BTEC course. So all of you, whether you've got 2 or 3 choices, will have some choice. Unfortunately, at GCSE level, it's not the time when you've got completely free choice. That comes when you start to go to a 6th form college or do A-levels. But you do have some choice, and I'm sure all of you will find things that you would like to do. Now, while we're talking about options, I just wanted to remind you about your Year 9 selections. I don't know if you remember, but I came into assemblies with Mr. Box in Year 8, and then we would have sent out information. And this year you have been doing 2 from art, dance, drama, DT and music. But just a reminder, we did talk about this when you chose them in Year 8, but just a reminder, you do not have to do any of those if you do not want to as your options. If, for example, you chose art and dance and you now want to do music, that's absolutely fine. So in other words, what you selected as part of your Year 9 selections does not need to affect your GCSE or vocational courses options. Okay, if you want to carry on with the 2 of them, that's absolutely fine, but you definitely do not have to at all. And if you want to choose something else, you can. So what happens once you submit your form, and your form will be online and the link to your form will be in your letter. I will go through every single person's choices and check that there's no concerns with that and everything works out. Occasionally, it doesn't happen very often, but occasionally it could be that we haven't got enough people to run a particular course. So say, for example, we had 3 people who chose media, 3 people is not enough to be able to run a course, so I would come and see you. Very occasionally, it could be that there's too many people who have chosen a course. So say if we had 250 people all wanted to do hospitality, we haven't got enough food rooms. So again, we would have to select from there. Okay, but nothing to worry about. If there are any queries, I will always come and see you. So tonight at 3 o'clock, you will be emailed your option pathway letter. Within your letter will be an option selection form. So there's a link. So you'll press on the link and that will take you to your selection form. But remember, you can look at the form, but don't select it yet. And that will be explained in your second assembly. There will be a link to the option booklet that is on the website. And there will be a link to the virtual options evening, which is also on the website, that I'm going to explain in a bit more detail in a minute. Your parents and carers will get their parents' evening letter and the your year 9 report at about 3:30, 4 o'clock. So when you go onto the links on your letter, it will take you to here, Key Stage 4 options that's on our website. The booklet is underneath the option booklet tab. The option assembly, so this assembly that's being recorded and the one I did previously will be there, and the virtual options evening will be underneath this tab. So this is what the booklet will look like. Okay, every single course will have all this information in it, the same headings. What will the course cover? How would you be assessed? What qualities will I need to be successful on the course? There'll be information on the right-hand side about the qualification and the exam board. And also within the booklet, there will be information on the core offer, so that's English and maths, etc., and also some general options information. And all of you will have a link to that in your letter, and you will also be able to look at it on the website without going through the link later on tonight. Now, the virtual options evening. If we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, then people at home would be coming up to see me for an assembly and also a presentation by all of the staff. However, because we can't do that, the staff have worked really hard to put together videos with lots of information about the different subjects that you can choose. I've also done a covering virtual sort of explanation in a short video. So when you get your letter, the link will be to that, and then you can sit down as a family and go through all the different subjects and be able to see in more detail about what it would be like, for example, to do business studies as a GCSE, to do media as a GCSE. Now remember, you've got Parents' Evening on Thursday. If any of you have any queries concerning options, then you can make an appointment to see me or Mr. Box. Mrs. Hines, who's our independent careers advisor, will also be available for appointments. Mr. Ritchie, obviously, as your head of year, will be available for appointments. And then if something comes up during the evening of Parents' Evening, after that's finished, you can then make an appointment to see someone from SLT, including myself, the next day. Okay, so plenty of chance to be able to speak to people. So that's it from me. Lots of information. Please don't worry if you didn't take it all in. This will also be on the website later on. You're going to log out in a minute and you're going to go to your second presentation, where you will know what pathway you're on and also talk about how to actually fill in the online form to select your options. I really look forward to seeing you back on site from Monday the 8th of March. And please don't worry. I know for some of you this is going to be a worrying time, but it is something nice, something positive, because you're starting to make decisions about your future, and there's lots of people around to help with that. Okay, if you'd all like to log out because you need to log into your second assembly, thanks ever so much for listening.